Hi, I'm Andrew Wallace, and welcome to the We've Got a Problem podcast, where each week we explore inspiring stories of struggle, success, and solutions to prevalent problems and how our guests have turned a problem into an opportunity. This week, I'm joined by RickTerrien, award-winning serial entrepreneur and multi-patent investor, all of which he did after the age of 45. His book, Ageless Startup, Start a Business at Any Age, is a handbook for transitioning from employee to entrepreneur or from empty nester to business owner. And he's on a mission to help people in the second half of life pursue their dreams of starting their own business. Rick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Andrew. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, glad to have you. So I've got so many questions because the fact is that I think more people want to start businesses than ever. And it seems like people in the second half of life kind of get left out of that, at least in our social consciousness, out of in following their dream to do that. And I know that a lot of businesses are actually started by people over the age of 45, but we kind of mentally just think of startups as being a young person's game. Why is that?
Everybody wants to blame ageism. I mean, it's just built into the system. This isn't new to these current generations. It's been forever. That probably is a big part of it. But, a lot of it's just what sells magazines. And, and it's very cool to see, bros on the front of a yacht with mountains in the background. And, when in reality, the majority of businesses that are started in the United States are started by people who are 45 and older.
There you go. So it's really just a perception problem. People don't realize how often it's happening. And that probably affects, I imagine, how people conceive of starting these things. They go, well, maybe I'm too old. Maybe I've missed my chance and don't even do it because they don't know anybody or aren't aware that actually so many people are doing it. So talk to me a little bit about your businesses yourself, some of the businesses that you've started, all of which you did after the age of 45.
Well, sure. Well, I had one that we ran up until the age of 45. I started it when I was in college with a bowl of change on my dresser drawer. And I sold it at 25 years, put my kids through school. I mean, it was a great little business. Nobody would write articles about it, but it was just fine. And that business was still going 15 years later. I saw the guy I sold it to, and it was, and he was running it. So it was 40 years old when I last lost track of it.
Okay.
I sold that business when I was 45. I take sabbaticals in between these businesses. Nobody gives me a whole bunch of money to retire. That's still on the horizon someplace. But I took a little sabbatical to start thinking about what I might do next. Entrepreneurship, as you know, is a system for fixing broken things. And there's plenty of broken stuff out there. I went and found one that I knew something about from when I was a younger kid. I worked with my dad. He was an inventor also. We were working on water treatment. And I had to sort of install and design-ish when I was a kid, what we call equipment to keep the dumb guy stuff out of dad's smart guy stuff. And it was, like a pre-treatment system. But lo and behold, 15, 20 years later, 25 years later, that problem still existed in manufacturing plants all over the world. It was a problem of oil contamination, and people at the time still are a little bit blowing each other up over oil, right? And
Right.
Here, these factories are contaminating valuable fluids with oil unintentionally, and then taking it out and throwing it away as a wastewater, having it hauled away as a wastewater.
Right.
When in fact, oil floats and stuff sinks. It's not that hard.
Right.
I invented a system to exploit that difference at the molecular level. And within a few years, we were capturing literally 10 million gallons of oil every year that had been lost as wastewater.
Wow.
It was really a cool business. We had customers all over Africa and Asia, and owned the car business in the United States. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed it immensely. We got an award from Fast Company magazine. The award's now called the 50 most innovative companies in the world, and we won that. And I did it with 4 people. It's the smallest. I know. I don't think they knew that at the time. The smallest company, as I understand it, ever to win that in the history of Fast Companies Award.
Well, see, that's an amazing achievement. So here's you talk about, you saw a problem that existed, right? And that entrepreneurship and starting a business and doing any of this stuff is about solving a problem. And I think that is a lesson for all of us in anything, is what problems can I solve? How can I make this better? What can I do? What's not being done, right? And look at a way to make that happen. So, I mean, there are a lot of barriers to having a good idea and to getting it out there, right? You go, this problem still exists, but I mean, talk to me about some of the things that happen. What are the biggest barriers to people making the transition? I've got a good idea, but I'm working at a company. What are the biggest barriers you see with people making that transition?
Most people interested in entrepreneurship and trying something like this don't know enough entrepreneurs. That's in the research. It doesn't matter what age they are, but it's especially true of 2 groups: younger entrepreneurs and especially older entrepreneurs. That's my cohort. They didn't grow up with this. People went off and got jobs and stayed in that profession until they got the gold watch, and that system is gone away. But has not been a formalized way for older entrepreneurs, especially, to meet one another, just to get in the same metaphysical room with one another.
Yep.
That's what we've done with this new nonprofit Center for Ageless Entrepreneurs. It's just to bring them together.
Got it. So talk to me a little bit more about the Center for Ageless Entrepreneurs. I mean, you're trying to bring people together, but how? What way does that manifest itself?
Well, I finished my book, which is called Ageless Startup: Start a Business at Any Age. And it was published the same week that the pandemic was declared.
Good timing. Great timing.
Thank you. I worked hard on that. And there was a book tour and signings and all this location-based stuff that was going to happen, all out the window, all of it out the window. But I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. This is the way life goes round. This stuff just keeps happening. And not that I need to trivialize a pandemic, but it was an obvious sign that I needed to shift. And I had some friends who were thinking about this issue of older entrepreneurship and how to take care of these barriers. So a group of us got together and formed a 501c3 nonprofit and set up some ground rules, established the website. I'm working on the technology for an off-site kind of a member-to-member platform that can be more secure than using social media. And we put that out and we've rolled it out, and it's just getting its sea legs now, but there's some of the coolest people I have ever met in my life rolling into this thing. I'm humbled. It's very cool.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, so I think the connection is something that we're missing in so many facets of our lives these days. Just meeting other people who are like-minded is extremely difficult. Get beyond entrepreneurship and just trying to find anybody who's interested in anything else that you're interested in. I'm in a couple of car clubs, right? I like old cars. I do that. That's my hobby. And even finding other people who are equally crazy as I am for this stuff is difficult. And of course you want to get together. And of course you want to talk about all these things and help solve problems together, because I might have knowledge that even if I'm only 2 steps ahead of you, I might be able to help you out and save you a lot of heartache, headache, those kinds of things if we can get together. So how do people find out about the Center for Ageless Entrepreneurship? What's your kind of promotional strategy?
One of them is being on your podcast.
There you go.
Thank you very much. I consider that a high point.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. It is preaching the word to as wide a possible audience as we can. I've set up this website so it is information laden as possible. So somebody could spend 15, 20 minutes on this website looking around and get a pretty full understanding of what the ethic of this new organization is about, how it operates, who's running it, what the structure is, what they're going to need to commit to. And then if they want, they can begin an application. And it's right now we're still in the opening the doors phase of all this. So I'm bringing in a few dozens of people to help set the thing up and break the rules a little while, figure out what's working, what's not working.
Well, that's breaking stuff, moving quickly, breaking stuff. I think that was in, I don't know, the Facebook mantra or something. But that's kind of what you have to do, right? When you're starting anything, is go in the direction that you're pretty confident is the right way to go, and then start breaking things and figuring out how to fix those things and move forward. What else would you say? I mean, it's going to be a question I'm probably going to ask 5 times in different ways, but why is starting a business so hard? Why? What makes it just so difficult to get your sea legs, so to speak?
Right. The reality is, it's not that hard. It's just new, right? And new stuff is a barrier. So you can break that down, I do anyway, into 3 separate functions that you need to consider. Mm-hmm. You need to start small. You can start with a 1 person. I advocate, especially for this older cohort, come out into the market, but get yourself hardened up, armor up, get an LLC around you, get an entity around you, get your banking in place, get your insurance in place. None of this is expensive. None of it's hard, but you need to get that, and you need to start small. The next one is to start smart. And in my world, that means finding your tribe. Just as you were talking about with your car club. Right? So now you find people who are interested in cars, and then it's older cars, and then maybe it's Mustangs from 1960 to 1968. Next thing you know, you've got the exact group you want to be in, and they're all telling Mustang jokes. So it's start smart, is get that network around you. And that's what we're doing with that Center for Ageless Entrepreneurs. We're putting that platform in place. But the last of them is to start right now. It's going to take longer than you want, no matter what. It's happening to me. I've done this a whole bunch of times, and I'm just screaming and knocking off the walls because this has taken so long, right? And I'm going, oh, that's right. You're the guy who says start right now. It's like planting a tree, right? The best day to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today, right? Just do it. Get going. And screw it up. If you're smart about this, the screw ups aren't going to cost you much money.
Right. Well, and of course it's early, right? So if you screw up early and you get all your screw ups out of the way, as if you're going to be able to stop screwing up later, but maybe you'll just do it a little bit less. But if you could get it out of the way now, the implications of failure are small because you haven't invested, you haven't built anything, you haven't built anything huge yet. Right. I think the other component that I hear in that is don't be too obsessed with perfection, which I think a lot of people get into that. I don't have my idea is not perfect yet. I'm thinking there might be something here, but I don't know that it's right. I don't know if there's a lot of money to be made. I've kind of thought about my analysis. I've kind of done this, and you need to do something. You need to get into it, and maybe don't commit to, I'm going to get everything in place before I do this, but move forward. You've got to do something to explore this so that you can either say, you know what, we tried it. It wasn't worth it. I couldn't figure it out. Next thing, moving on. Right. Or you go, yep, there's something here. And now I just need to iterate, refine, and get into it. What would you say the kind of biggest hurdles are to continued success? I mean, you've got that storming phase where you're figuring things out and getting it going, but now you've got to go to a norming phase, right? That's got to become now you got to run the business, not just start it off and go, yay, we're done. No, I mean, the work is not over yet. What what can you do to, what can you tell us to help us transition to running it as a day-to-day ongoing concern?
In my case, and this is just for me, it's having smarter people in the room. People want to be positive. They want to help. If you think of surrounding yourself with people online, it's just the world, and you're going to get snarked out. There's going to be people just, mean and putting all that awful stuff into comments and all of that. But if you can surround yourself with a group of peers and try your ideas out there and know that you're safe, know that you're comfortable, know that you're not going to get attacked, but you will get contradicted because they're friends, and that's what friends are for. Ultimately, that's the most viable thing, to have something continue to keep going. Because in my case, what these businesses from years ago, it's a continuous process of just shaving off the little edges, the sharp edges that get caught in commerce. Is you want this thing to be free flowing smoothly, and you'll find new things as you emerge at different levels. New problems will come up. So having people around to talk to about, and the ability to keep iterating, no matter how old your company is, seems to me to be at least a way to stay out of trouble.
Right. And when I think the other component for me is, how do you know as you're going along that you're still in the right business? I mean, you've always got to be kind of asking yourself, well, is this exactly what we want to do, or is there actually a bigger opportunity if we just pivot just slightly this way and now target a broader range of people, right? You may start selling one service. You may have your thing, and realize in conversations with your clients, your customers, whatever, that in fact, they have another unmet need that's tangentially related to what you do. So you can open a new line of business. You've got your window washing business. I'm just using a simple example. You've got your window washing business, and you find out that people want somebody, and can't find anybody good who shows up, who does the work, to do power washing, to wash the concrete down. You go, hey, that's actually a logical extension. I can offer that. I can do that. Well, now you're doing power washing, and you find out, well, power washing works in the summer, but now I've got the winter. Now I've got a snow removal business I'm adding on. I mean, these are young people things, but simple things for everybody to understand, that you should always be questioning whether what you're doing is the right thing, and also whether there's ways to keep growing. I wonder, and I'd like to get your advice on this, how important it is, do you think, to have a business that can scale, so to speak, right? In my hypothetical window washing business, now power washing and snow removal, how can I that's relatively limited to the work and expertise that I myself possess, right? I can hire a few more people to do the work, but now I'm managing others, those kinds of things. And the business can't necessarily scale quite as easily beyond my little local market to go broad. How important do you think it is to find businesses that, or think of businesses that can be more easily scaled, or even scaled beyond that of your own labor that you can put into it?
What a great question. And it reminds me of a quote that one of my editors, my publisher was Entrepreneur Press. And we were working on an article after the book came out. And in the sideline, he wrote, the transformative scaling power of peer-to-peer networks. And I've carried that with me forever. So when you take the question that you just brought up, or the hypothetical of the window washing business, which is just fine, but there's also another way to be growing that window washing business, or any enterprise along the way, is surrounding yourself with that tribe. So that when one of your customers says, you know what, maybe they don't want power washing or snow blowing, but they want X, Y, or Z. And if you don't have that in your repertoire, you just have to say no. But if you know somebody in your group, in your cohort, Helen knows X or Y, or Bob knows Z, or Sharon knows X, Now you can say, why, yeah, I've got a tribe and I can pull those skill sets together. And why, yes, we can do that project. I don't consider in this, 2022, there's not going to be a solid single path that keeps all of these little enterprises on track. They're going to be moving left and right and pivoting all the time. So it becomes more of who you know than what you know.
Yep.
And again, I think that that's the value of these peer-to-peer networks.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And we underestimate, I think I was reading, and it was probably may have been in Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman's book. But I was reading recently that when you give people and put money on the brain, they become less collaborative. They stand further away from people when making these kinds of negotiations, when talking to people, even when it's not money related. Just bringing money into the conversation makes people withdraw slightly and again become less collaborative. And we have to remember that one of the best things that we can do is to add two people together, collaborate, and make 2 + 2 = 7. That you can, right. that the multiplicative power of finding your tribe, of getting the right people together. Now you've quintupled your ability to meet unmet needs.
I'll give you my foundation story, and then I'll give you my number.
Please.
I was consulting for one of the largest trade organizations in the country. It was 115 years old. And I was looking at annual trade fair. I'm looking over at the trade floor, show floor. There's all these principal legacy companies. There's new companies. There's vendors. There's logistics. All this stuff. It's just amazing. And then I look out in the hallway, and there's 6, 7 people, men and women, all saying goodbye to each other. And because they hit a certain age, they had to retire. And I'm looking over my other shoulder, and they had just built all of this stuff that was so successful. They knew the deals that had been made between the companies. They knew the deals that had gone bad. They knew the supply chain problems, and they're sending them out the door. I mean, this is just dumb. Yeah. So here's my numbers story. In the United States, I'm going to round this out, but 45 to 65-ish, something like that. There's 100 million people. But 25 million of those people pre-pandemic said that they would like to start their own small enterprise. And that number's gone up significantly, like straight up since, but I'm not using those. I'm just using the more conservative numbers. If each of those 25 million people had 30 years life experience, work experience, 20 to 50,
right,
times 25 million people, that's 750 million years of human experience we're sending out the door.
Right.
To go play golf or garden. I mean, what the hell is that? So there's some alternatives. One of the things we're exploring with my co-founder is doing the research on this is something called phased retirements, where we can keep those older workers connected to their companies, maybe let them do crazy startups in their industry, the kind that the mothership company would never bet money on, but they would, let some stray older beloved worker go off and have a try at it. And if that's something that person likes, now that's market research that company couldn't have bought for $1 million.
Right.
And they're keeping one of their long-term employees close. And that same person can mentor and advise new team members in that company. Yeah. There's just a lot of ways to do this better. And most don't cost very much.
Well, I think I remember, and I cannot remember exactly where I read this, which is always the problem, but there are some companies that create, say, as an example, an office of the former CEO, that the old CEO just gets an office down the hall, little office, not the big C-suite kind of thing, but now he's down there, not necessarily even every day, but a couple days a week, he comes into work. And anytime he's almost like an ombudsman. Anytime somebody's got a problem or a question, or why did we do this, or maybe bounce something off, or the current CEO wants to ask a question, he's still accessible. You're not losing the benefit of having worked at the company for 35 years, and just because he's gotten a little bit older than say Wall Street is comfortable having somebody there, they feel like they need to change, doesn't mean you just throw that experience out. That kind of just the huge loss of knowing problem solving, how these things happen. I talked to, and I don't mean to get way off topic here, but I talked to an engineer who'd worked for Hughes Aircraft, and he started at Hughes Aircraft in 1950. And he retired, I want to say, in 89 or 90. So, so he worked for the company for 40 years.
Yep.
And had been through so many different transitions, pioneered digital computing for the entire company, built all these things, sent probes to Venus, and just innumerable things. And of course, he, in his last several years there, he was kind of their just chief troubleshooter. Like, they didn't know what to do with him because he knew too much to to just send him out. But also he wasn't doing the nitty gritty programming anymore. He wasn't designing the system or teaching folks anymore. And he just had an office down the hall, and they would suddenly go, we need somebody to run this program that's gone way off the rails. And they'd walk down and find him. That's the kind of thing perhaps a lot of companies should be doing, but when they're not, find a way to utilize that experience elsewhere in life. Start your own business, because you've got that. That's, I think, the most encouraging message that of your entire thing is these people have the experience, they have the know-how, they have the connections. They're even more ideally suited than, say, I am for being successful right out of the gate with their businesses.
Right. It is just that. It's knowledge, it's know-how, and it's networks. And if you think that just in the United States, there's 25 million people that are interested in doing something like this. So it's your example of the guy at Hughes Aircraft writ large across an economy, where now you can bring those people together. Not all of them are going to have direct connections, but by the time you get everybody putting their back together and you go out to the world and you say, we've got this really highly competent labor pool that wants to work on their own terms. They don't necessarily want to put in their 50 hours a week with your dumbass company. Or their good former employer, I should say.
Yeah, right. There you go. Good former employer. But yeah, just to offer, and I think companies probably need to offer more flexibility in general, because you go, just because I don't want to be here 5 days a week doesn't mean I don't have something to offer. Right. If I came in 2 days a week, and you just, people know it's, hey, Wednesday and Thursday, Rick's in the office, and he's, here to, he doesn't mean you're not useful for a lot of things. So as we get kind of near the end here, I have questions I kind of ask everybody, and we've covered a lot of stuff, and we may have kind of answered some of these already, but to put a point on it, what do you think the biggest fallacy is that it seems like everybody buys into in your business, in general, in life, doesn't matter? What do you just see as something that's an utter load of garbage that seems like everybody buys into?
I would suggest that this pedestal that entrepreneurship has been put on is turning into an impediment for people. They are told that it's you need MBAs and you need to be a master of the newest programming languages and all of that. And entrepreneurship is just solving problems, and problems exist down at street level. It exists at sidewalk level, and people have communities they love and markets they know, and they are able to make contributions to make those better. That's what entrepreneurship is about. It's not this walled garden of geniuses.
Absolutely. So conversely, along with that, what do you think the most underrated concept is? What are people overlooking?
Well, I'm going to say it's in self-interest, but I'm going to say collaboration.
Yep.
When I get people who have been at, and this is happening inside the Center for Ageless Entrepreneurs, people that have worked for a specific company for a long time, or worked in industry or specific businesses for a long time, it's not native to them to say, well, what could we do together? I've never worked in that industry, but I do know something about that, and have these groups, ad hoc groups, come together and form together. That's a skill set that needs nurturing, and it needs the right environment to thrive under. So that's actually why we set it up as a nonprofit, as a 501c3 nonprofit, is just to take all of that off the table, all the money changing hand stuff, just so we can build that platform so people have that comfort level that kind of collaboration can flourish.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I have a kind of a personal question for you. What would you say the most unexpected detour is that your career has taken? Because it's rarely a straight path to success, right? Einstein was a patent clerk and went into inventing the theory of relativity and all that stuff. What kind of, looking back, surprises you the most?
It's going to sound like bragging, but it was a complete total surprise. Is I wanted to put some intellectual property into this business of that oil recycling business. I wanted to try to do that. And I did the copyright and the trademark and all of that. And then here's that monolith up the hill of a patent, but you got to hire patent attorneys. It's just very, very difficult. The language is locked down since the late 1800s on how you can write, how you can draw those symbols, what you can say in the claims. And I wrote that first one myself completely. I got a book out of the library, and a shout out to Nolo Press. And not only did I write the whole patent, but I got another book out from Nolo of the library on how to draw the patents. And it's very, very stylized. You can't screw up. The angle of the little arrows has to be just all of it. And I not only got the patent, but I got all 11 claims, which is impossible. Lawyers don't get that on the first try. I know. I was looking at this thing, and I'm looking at this the right address they sent this to. It was amazing. And I did that first patent, and this was back in the early aughts. And I did it myself, and it was probably about $3,000 or $4,000. And by the last one, which I think was my ninth, I had investors and all these other folks, and they all wanted we're not doing this out of a library book, son. It was multiple times of what I had spent on that first one. And I still like my first one best.
Well, see, hey, and I mean, again, so many things that we've talked to today strike down or hit against the preconceived notion that things are complicated, difficult, expensive, impossible. All those things that people look at entrepreneurship, getting a patent, getting an LLC, all these things are not complicated. Right. They're actually not. And the more examples we have of it's possible, because it's so easy to get, and I know this from personal experience, it's so easy to get caught up in, I don't have the X, I don't have the thing X, and that's going to be a stumbling block, and it's going to be too difficult to get, and maybe today is not the day to start my business, and to hang up on all those little things that actually, if you sat down and you go, okay, what do we need? Thing one, well, we need to be able to patent this thing, or we don't have any control of our intellectual property. All right, can we do that? Well, yeah, look, Rick did it.
He can do it. Anybody can.
He can do it.
Actually, you're on a really good point, Andrew. I'll pitch this book just once more, but it's to get to a point in it. So I was writing this book, and it's Ageless Startup, Start a Business at Any Age. And I wrote it to be this skinny little inspirational book, just to give people colors in their head that this is a movement that they can get involved in. My editor said, no. I want checklists in there, son. And so she made me put in all these checklists at every chapter, and I was mad as hell as I was doing it because she was ruining my inspiration. And it made it a much better book, a much better book. And so now you can go to these kinds of books, and at the end of every chapter, there's a little checklist. What do you need to do here? What do you need to do here? What's the insurance? What's the banking?
Yeah. And those kinds of things for somebody like me, or I think a lot of other people who are thinking about getting into something, having a checklist to refer to just go, ooh, yes, I need to think about that. Just bullet points of that's right, that's right, that's right. Got to take care of that. And not to treat it as a manual. These are everything you need to do from start to finish in exactly this order, but rather to go make sure you've decided whether or not you need this. Make sure you've thought through it. Make sure you're into all that. Rick, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. Folks, if you want to learn more about the Center for Ageless Entrepreneurs, you can check out their website, agelessentrepreneurs.org. Follow Rick on LinkedIn and check out his book, Ageless Startup. Links to everything are in the show notes as usual. Until next time, I'm Andrew Wallace, and we don't have a problem. We've got an opportunity.